Have you ever felt confused when, right after eating fruit, you suddenly crave cheese, meat, or rich salty foods? That doesn't mean you're deficient in nutrients. It reveals a quiet transition happening deep inside your body. My name is Ethan Marshall. I am a 60-year-old physician practicing in the United States, specializing in natural health and human metabolic transformation. And I want to begin with a truth that may shock you. Many people eat fruit every day hoping to become healthier. Yet the very moment after finishing, their bodies react in the complete opposite way. Not with lightness or comfort, but with an intense, unmistakable craving, directed straight at cheese, bread, meat, or familiar salty, fatty foods. If you've experienced this, don't rush to conclusions. Before we go any further, if you find the topics I share valuable, please subscribe to the channel, like, and share this video. That support allows me to continue creating deep, honest, and truly useful health content for you. Over many years of working with middle-aged and older patients, I've heard the same question again and again. Doctor, why do I crave salty and fatty foods more after eating fruit? Some describe the feeling as coming on very quickly, just minutes after eating an apple or a plate of fruit. Others say the craving isn't vague at all. It's so specific that they can only think of one familiar food they've eaten for years. What unsettles them isn't just the craving itself, but the doubt it creates about their own choices. They begin to wonder whether fruit is truly good, or whether their bodies are lacking nutrients, protein, salt, or something fruit simply cannot provide. What's important to understand is that this phenomenon is not rare. It appears in many people when they begin to incorporate fruit seriously into their diet, especially those who have eaten rich, starchy, and high-fat foods for decades. The craving is usually not scattered, but precisely targeted at foods tied to old habits. That very precision convinces many people that this must be a real physiological need, leading them to quickly return to familiar foods to ease the discomfort. The problem is that if you don't understand the context of this phenomenon, it's easy to give up at the very beginning. Instead of seeing it as a signal to observe, you may see it as proof that you're going in the wrong direction. And so the familiar cycle repeats. Try to eat healthier, feel discomfort, then return to old habits. The question I want you to ask yourself now is this. When a craving appears after eating fruit, do you think it's A, a sign that your body truly lacks something, or B, a sign that your body is reacting to a deep internal change? Leave a comment choosing A or B, and we'll continue together to clarify this. The core issue lies in how people misinterpret the body's signals when entering a phase of dietary change. For decades, modern nutrition thinking has trained us to believe that every craving represents a deficiency: protein, fat, salt, or energy. When this framework is applied to fruit consumption, cravings for salty or fatty foods are immediately labeled as warning signs that the new diet is not enough, imbalanced, or unsuitable for one's constitution. This assumption triggers a rapid psychological reflex, restoring old foods to bring the body back to a familiar state. This response doesn't arise from deep physiological understanding, but from an underlying fear of doing something harmful to one's health. When fear takes over, people stop observing bodily signals neutrally and rush to suppress discomfort without understanding its nature. Another consequence of this misunderstanding is equating cravings with true nutritional needs, even though the two are not the same. Nutritional needs are stable physiological states that sustain life, while cravings are often reflexive, tied to eating memories, habits, and an internal environment shaped over time. When fruit is introduced into the diet, its role is not limited to providing light energy or vitamins. It also triggers changes in digestion and metabolism. Failing to recognize this role leads many to see fruit merely as a replacement food rather than a catalyst for internal adjustment. As a result, every uncomfortable reaction is seen as failure rather than part of adaptation. This lack of understanding reinforces a familiar loop. Attempt change, encounter resistance, return to old habits, and conclude that one's body is not suited for more natural choices. At a deeper level, the issue is not just nutritional knowledge, but how people face transition itself. Any change that touches long-established biological foundations creates resistance, and without the right framework, that resistance is misread as danger. At that point, returning to old foods becomes an automatic reflex to regain a sense of familiar safety. This confusion between safety and familiarity is the greatest barrier preventing many from progressing further in adjusting their diet and lifestyle. The mechanism behind craving salty or fatty foods after eating fruit should be understood as an orderly sequence of biological responses, not a random reaction. According to Arnold Ehret's framework, the natural organic acids in fruit do not merely stimulate taste. They act as agents that soften and dissolve long-accumulated mucus in the digestive system and connective tissues. These mucus deposits form from prolonged consumption of mucus-forming foods such as refined starches, dairy, cheese, and meat, leaving residues that are difficult to eliminate and gradually become part of a familiar internal environment. When fruit is introduced, dissolution begins, shifting wastes that were previously relatively stable. This shift does not occur quietly. It activates biological reflexes that have been programmed into the body for years. The colon, as analyzed by Norman Walker and Bernard Jensen, is not only an organ of elimination, but a powerful reflex center closely linked to the central nervous system. When the colonic environment changes, nerves send feedback signals to the brain. The brain, accustomed to the old state, interprets this disturbance in the most familiar way, as hunger or craving. Crucially, this signal is not general, but highly specific, often pointing directly to the foods that created the mucus now being dissolved. Physiologically, this represents the body's attempt to slow rapid change, functioning as a self-regulatory mechanism to avoid sudden imbalance. The craving is therefore not evidence of nutritional deficiency, but a sign that the body is in transition between two internal states. From this perspective, the struggle is not between willpower and temptation, but between two biological environments, an old, heavy but familiar one, and a new environment forming through cleansing. As fruit dissolves waste, the body temporarily loses the artificial stability it has known, and the reflex to reclaim old foods emerges as a way to restore familiar order. This phenomenon is especially pronounced in those with long histories of mucus-forming diets, as thicker accumulations provoke stronger reactions when disturbed. Thus, cravings in this context should be understood as indicators of an ongoing process, reflecting the complex interaction between fruit chemistry, the enteric nervous system, and the body's biological memory. Not a simple response to hunger or deficiency. Moving through this phase does not depend on rigid willpower, but on re-establishing how one understands and responds to biological signals. The first and most important step is recognizing the true nature of the craving, seeing it as a temporary phenomenon linked to internal environmental adjustment rather than a reliable indicator of nutritional need. Once this understanding is in place, panic-driven reactions and impulsive actions diminish, allowing the body to complete its transition uninterrupted. At the same time, supporting the body through simple but consistent measures is essential. Water, as a natural solvent, facilitates the dissolution and transport of waste, reducing both the intensity and duration of cravings. Maintaining hydration is not meant to suppress sensation, but to support elimination mechanisms during internal change. Another decisive factor is avoiding the reflex of returning to salty or fatty foods for immediate comfort. While this may quickly reduce cravings, it reinstates the very environment the body is attempting to leave, prolonging or repeating the adjustment cycle. Rather than treating discomfort as something to eliminate immediately, observing it within a reasonable time frame allows the body to complete its process without opposing intervention. Practices related to transitional diets emphasize that persistence has a cumulative effect. Once the specific mucus or waste layer is fully removed, the associated craving signal weakens and disappears without force. Simplicity in meals also plays a supportive role by reducing digestive burden and helping the nervous system gradually adapt to the new state. Avoiding conflicting stimuli allows the body to focus on a single direction of adjustment, rather than oscillating between environments. Additionally, adequate rest and stable daily rhythms help calm nervous system reactivity, making cravings more manageable in intensity. Overall, navigating this phase does not require complex strategies or aggressive interventions, but a combination of correct understanding, basic physiological support, and allowing time to fulfill its regulatory role. When these conditions are met, cleansing and adaptation unfold naturally, and cravings gradually lose their central role in the eating experience. The conclusion here is not about declaring a specific food right or wrong, but about changing how people read and understand their own biological language. When cravings appear after eating fruit, what matters is not immediate reaction, but the ability to recognize the message behind the signal. As examined throughout this process, cravings do not function as guides for supplementation, but as indicators that the body is eliminating residues no longer compatible with its emerging physiological state. Confusing needing more with letting go causes many to return to old choices, not because the body truly demands them, but because the mind seeks familiar sensations to restore artificial stability. When cravings are seen as messages from biological history rather than urgent demands of the present, the entire eating experience shifts to a different level, where observation and understanding replace reflex and anxiety. In this context, the natural fading of cravings is not the result of control or suppression, but the consequence of completing the elimination of the related waste layer. Once there is nothing left to reflect, the signal has no reason to persist. The core message, then, is distinguishing between the voice of true biological need and the echo of old habits. Cravings do not represent the body's present state, but mirror years of dietary history and internal conditioning. As that history is gradually dismantled, the signals tied to it retreat as well. Approaching this phenomenon with neutrality, without judgment or fear, allows the body to complete its adjustment at its own biological pace. At a deeper level, this offers a different perspective on the relationship between humans and internal sensations. Not every signal needs immediate fulfillment, and not every discomfort indicates harm. Some sensations exist solely to mark the end of a phase. When this is understood, cravings after eating fruit no longer become obstacles, but markers indicating that a transition is underway. The final message, therefore, is not advice about whether to eat or avoid any specific food, but a reminder to listen to the body with clarity. Cravings do not speak of what you need for the future. They recount what belongs to the past that the body is gradually releasing. Looking at the entire picture, cravings for salty or fatty foods after eating fruit are not random reactions or simple deficiency signals, but expressions of a deeper internal adjustment. As fruit alters the digestive environment, residues tied to long-standing habits are stirred, and cravings appear as transitional signals. The core issue lies not in fruit or cravings themselves, but in how people interpret and respond to them. Misunderstood, cravings drive a return to old patterns. Understood correctly, they mark the body's process of letting go of what no longer fits. This process highlights the difference between true biological needs and the echoes of habit, between familiarity and a healthier state taking shape. The deeper lesson is that not every internal sensation needs immediate satisfaction, and not every discomfort signals damage. In daily life, this can be applied by observing cravings or discomfort calmly, rather than reacting impulsively when facing dietary or lifestyle changes. Allowing the body time to adapt, maintaining simplicity, and supporting it with basics like water and rest enables adjustment to occur naturally without force. Do you believe cravings after eating fruit are signs of deficiency or signals that your body is changing? And why? If you want to explore health and natural healing more deeply, please fill out the form in the description to receive a free Healing Health ebook, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to support the channel in continuing to produce valuable and trustworthy content.